All right, welcome everybody. This is the spring, April 2024 Bakeathon. One of the talks at 2. This is Birds of a Feather talk, where we have a bunch of folks interested in using kdevops. And so I'll let the kdevops folks take it from there.
Some of you might be wondering what kdevops is. So I can give a brief summary, and others who are experienced can keep me honest. So kdevops is a framework for doing development, testing, and CI of the Linux kernel file systems. The original workflow for it was FS tests, XFS tests, also known as, or previously known as XFS tests. So basically, you could set it up, and it will automatically provision some guests and install your test kernels on the guests, and then run FS tests for you. That's very basic. I mean, there are plenty of other things that can do this. But the reason why I started pushing it for an FSD is because it looked like it was something that was going to be broadly adopted by the Linux file system community. I don't think Ted is enthusiastically joined on board. He has his own um, um, pile of Legos, as Jeff refers to it, that does this. But I know the BTRFS folks are using it. The XFS folks are using it. Now we're using it for NFSD. I think Lewis and other folks are pushing it for TempFS as well. Jeff had talked about getting Bcachefs added to it. But anyway, it seemed like something that there was a lot of inertia behind, and so that's why I picked this particular erector set rather than some of the others that were available. So recently, Scott and Jeff and I have been contributing a lot of support for the NFS pieces. The first one Jeff did was PyNFS, so you can select that workflow and run it against. It brings up a single test host and then runs PyNFS against itself. And then he added support for running NFS through the XFS paces. And now I've added the Git regression test. That's a suite of regression tests that the Git tool provides, which I've sort of been waving in front of people for the last couple of years here in this community. And then I added support for LTP, the Linux Test Project. It doesn't run all of it because it's actually a very large suite of tests, but it runs a few select ones, and it's easy to add more. And then the latest one I added was NFS test, Jorge's Python thingy. So Jeff added support for bringing up an NFS server. Scott just added support for bringing up an SMB server so that CIFS can be tested as well in very similar ways as NFS. And I also added some support for RDMA. Scott's added support for Kerberos, so we can do we can bring up a KDC and run the NFS with Kerberos, and I assume SMB will not be far behind. And then Jeff also added support for TLS, so it can make the control node a TLS certificate authority, so that the test nodes can get certificates and use test NFS with TLS. So that's sort of in a nutshell what kdevops is, what it means for us. And so I wanted to share that with you and see where else we should be going with it, what people want to use it for. I can drill into more detail about how it works, basically what the tool set is. Any questions anywhere you guys want to take this conversation? Olga?
I have a user question. So, sorry, I haven't used kdevops, but just so that I kind of get so this is a framework for testing. Does it require that kdevops runs both the client and the server piece?
It does both.
No. So what I'm asking is, does it require? So so when I
Can
run
you test
XFS,
against another server?
yes.
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 Yeah, you don't have to set up the NFS server that kdevops provides. You can actually select some options that allow you to point it. You can give the host name and the export name for a server that's outside of kdevops framework.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So that you can use, everything else, right? Which test suites you can run, but you can run it against an external server.
Yeah, like a NetApp file, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
A question. I'm sorry.
Yep. Go ahead.
Is this something a harness or those tests should we be bringing into the Bakeathons and whatnot to use it there as well? Do we all be using similar testing?
Anyone have an opinion about that?
I don't really think it's well suited to Bakeathons personally.
Yeah, because the network, because we can't even run XFS tests, right? So the network is not
Right.
Connectivity is not there for us to be able to do that. So I'm sure some of those other tests are also too heavy.
Well, they're the same tests that we're running now. It's just in an automated framework, or
Right,
somewhat more automated than we have. So we're used to at Bakeathon events, we're used to running stuff by hand, and I think that's fine.
Okay.
Maybe we can find an opportunity to, make it part of the testing events. But I mean, it's a Linux only thing right now.
Okay. Fair enough. Just thinking out loud. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I haven't personally tried the like pointing kdevops at an arbitrary server yet. It's on my list of things to do. But like in general, like when you run a normal kdevops run, it sets up like your exports in a particular way, and then the clients they're are going to look at them. And so obviously, like with Bakeathon, everybody brings their stuff, and they might carve out their file systems a different way. So I haven't looked at it. I don't know if kdevops will be able to cope with that, or if you can literally, I mean, Chuck, maybe you have. If you can literally specify the exact path to the exports that it'll be looking for, then yeah, sure, it might work fine. But if it wants that kind of, the way it structures it, then that's going to be a challenge. It would be cool though to use this framework, especially if we were doing like in-person Bakeathons.
Yeah, Tigran,
you could just
a point?
automate the clients, I suppose. I mean, that's something you could kind of do. It'll spin up new clients for you to run your tests for you, and then take them down when you're done, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but also, I mean, think about like the whole tail scale thing, right? So we would need to add some plumbing in there to register stuff.
Support the VPN.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tigran.
We have kind of a pipeline in our software process where we deploy our server and then we run different tests, including PyNFS, where we build a container that it runs against it. But obviously, all Linux kernel tests are done manually. So we build the kernel almost weekly every time when our Cs are merged in the upstream. But at that point, the testing happens manually. And then now I was looking how to kind of use a QEMU or something like this to spawn the server and then run the test. And as I understand, this is very similar to what you have in kdevops. So, can be this adapted to this kind of pipelines that is not depends on kdevops, but can be benefit from whatever is there? Or
I think it sounds very similar to what you're doing. kdevops is Ansible and Make and Python and what am I leaving out, Jeff?
Well, I mean, you can set it up to do either virtualization locally, which most people are using. That's mostly what we were doing. Is it used to use Vagrant, and we replaced it a while back with libvirt and Virt Builder and some other tools. But it can also use Terraform, which is a tool for or a framework for deploying on cloud hosts. So in principle, you could do that as well. So yeah,
But it doesn't use OpenShift.
yeah.
It doesn't use OpenShift.
You can use OpenShift actually. It can deploy. That's one of the Terraform can deploy to OpenShift, so you can deploy that.
Yeah.
way.
So in the local virtualization case, underneath Vagrant or libguestfs is QEMU. So you can run that on any platform that QEMU supports. But although our experience is limited to x86 and AR64.
Oh, this is fine with us. This was number one question. So sorry, Ben, I will still another minute. Then other thing is, so we have definitely application which we want to test against our server because this is our scientific workflow that we want. We don't want the full POSIX compliance. We just need the subset which is our application are using. But this is something where if we get this kind of validation application, so if it's, I guess it will be not complicated to make part of the system that kind of you as well early enough see that you break something for us. So maybe this is something that can be announced more widely, that if people have some NFS-based workloads, that they just add their use cases that you can run as well as a part of this testing.
So there's a learning curve. What you'd basically do is add a workflow that downloads and installs your application or test onto the test systems that it spins up, and then it runs them with Ansible. So it doesn't. It's not hard to add new ones. You do have to have some. There has to be some learning, so you can pick up how to add the Ansible properly. But it's all open source, so it just downloads. Basically, that's all those Ansible scripts do is they git clone the test. They build it, they install it on the target nodes, and then they run it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Ben. Do you remember what you were going to ask?
Yeah, I totally do. This is awesome. One thing that I think is really valuable for me is to be able to compare. Well, let me say this. This is awesome, and I haven't started using it yet because I already have my own homegrown thing over here that I love and I understand and it works. And one thing that's going to make me convert would be the opportunity to share my testing results and compare it with other folks. I see that kdevops has some of that functionality already. And in fact, some people's test results are there in the repository. Are there plans for NFS as a community to start publishing various folks' testing results? For example, I think you guys all understand this, but like one thing I very often wish I had was the ability to see all of Anna's test results, because I know she runs extensive tests on every kernel. And I want to compare and say, oh, this test started failing, or I'm getting 6 failures. Right now, I consistently have 6 failures, and I call that good. I don't know where everybody else is.
6 is about the right number.
Yeah.
So I've asked that on the mailing list.
Yeah, and we've done some
and
blasting of results.
and there was basically a pushback because they said that there's too much variability in terms of configuration, and that and so the results vary too much, because I was asking for exactly the same thing, like I wanted to keep track of the fact that these tests are failing, and it's okay, and then something was added, right, and then all of a sudden this test is not no longer working, and so it should signal some kind of a failure, right, regression. that, that was my hope, because I think that I was getting frustrated because, yes, like all of a sudden, stuff, stopped working. But, Tron basically said that, no, publishing those results is not useful. Anyway,
Well,
but I thought that they would be.
There's a couple things. If we all use kdevops exactly the way it's set up, and then our results aren't really meaningful between us because it's all identical, right?
But
So
it would
there's-
be a standard system, so it wouldn't have all the different K configs and config
No,
changes where you could compare everything.
You can put in all kinds of different K configs. I mean, that's not fixed.
Mhm.
It varies quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, that
I
was
mean-
going to be one of my questions, Chuck. Like, how are you managing, like, I don't know how many different workflows you're running and stuff, but like, how are you managing your K configs? Like,
There's a directory in under playbooks, roles, boot Linux /templates
yeah,
with the kernel configs in there. So I keep them all locally, and I have one for I have a config for NFSD next, and a config for NFSD fixes, and a config for NFSD 5.15.y, et cetera, et cetera.
okay. So you're using the configs that are in the repo that you've
No,
created.
I'm adding them myself.
You're adding them yourself. Okay.
So you can just CD into Linux, where it actually builds the Linux kernel and make menu config and do whatever changes you want, and then copy your .config over into that directory, and kdevops will pick that up. Now, if you want to use the same .config for every workflow and test that you're going to run, then you can just stick it in that same directory, config-kdevops, and it will always use that one no matter what kernel you've got. It looks for
Yeah.
that first.
Okay. I was looking at that. The thing, I have like 40 different workflows running like automatically, and I kind of need a better, simpler method to manage those than.
Yeah,
I-
that's the Wild West right now.
Yeah, that's a me issue. Okay.
So to get back to Ben's question, I think having published results is an end goal that is very desirable. And what kdevops does today is it has an expunges list that is now actually we just split it out into a separate repo, Git repo. So because the source code for kdevops is only about 32 megabytes, but the expunges data is 200 or more.
Well, Chuck, I thought
and-
it was the
and growing.
expunges. The expunges, I think, are still in there. It was the old test results that were taking up a lot of space.
Okay.
So
Well, something's been moved.
yeah, it was the test results, and so yeah, originally people were committing their test results back to the repo, and that's what Luis split out. And I think moving forward, he doesn't want people committing their test results, but new expunges can still be committed.
Yeah, I think
That was my understanding.
we really ought to have a separate information base for the test results, and I think that's an area for a lot of development.
Yeah.
What's an expunge?
Yeah, that's expunges is a CI term that means these are the tests that always fail or cause crashes, and so we don't want to run them.
Got it.
Yeah, and for NFS, we don't really have any in the repo yet, and that's something that I kind of wanted to work with you on. And it kind of goes to Ben's, we need to be comparing results and saying, yeah, this one consistently fails in NFS, so we either need to update FS tests to say not to run it on NFS, or we need to update the expunges in kdevops so that we skip them. But one way or another, ideally, we'd like to be skipping those tests if they're never going to work. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I did some work a while back and tracked down a bunch of those, a bunch of failures that were consistent, and fixed them in FS tests, so that FS tests just won't run them on NFS. So that's really the right place to fix these. I think the expunge file thing is fine, but it's kind of a kludge. I mean,
It's
I
different.
mean, it's fine for like if it's
So-
you want to run it in some cases and not others.
There are two classes of problem there. There's one where that's never going to be fixed, and that's something that should be fixed in FS tests. I agree. And then there's stuff that, okay, this is broken now and we still need to get results. And that's what the expunges list is for.
I agree. That's kind of what my thinking was.
So yeah, as I said, that I think that all of that is an opportunity for us to contribute to kdevops and make it better. There's, every year when we get together for LSF, this seems to be the most contentious part of the discussion, is that how are we going to track the expunges? How are we going to track the results? And obviously trends are the most important piece of meta information that we get out of these tests. So we have to do something smart with that. And I don't think anybody's come up with a good idea yet.
So
Sorry, Olga.
I could interject there. So I've been playing around with Anna's XFS test DB a little bit. And I mean, I think it's really cool. Like I imported a ton of, because basically what I'm doing is I'm running BuildBot, or I'm running kdevops under BuildBot. So I have BuildBot just watching a bunch of different upstream trees, and when somebody pushes to it, it'll fire off kdevops workflows. And then so I've been accumulating various results over the course of months. So I just kind of did a mass import into your tool. And I was thinking maybe that would be something to, have some like public place where we could potentially push results into that backend DB or something like that. I don't know, just a thought. I mean, with it being the SQLite backend, I don't know how well it scales to like thousands and thousands of tests, But
that's fair. I haven't tried it with that many tests,
yeah.
but I'm sure the backend could be rewritten if it needs to be.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, what I'm gonna try to do is incorporate, at least on my workflows, that at the end of every run, it just automatic, instead of having to do a mass import, it just stick those results into that database. One thing that I don't know if you're taking requests or if you're accepting patches, but one thing I would like would be in the XFS test DB new function to give it like a terse option so that it just outputs the run ID. Because that would make it easier for scripting to not have to parse that string to get the run ID out of it.
Okay, I can look into that.
Cool.
I am accepting requests and
all right,
suggestions. I didn't know anyone else was using it.
Yeah, no, I just literally started looking at it like a few weeks ago, and it looked like something that would be useful.
Yeah.
Especially, diving in and looking at past results then after you have them imported.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And even being able to look at individual test cases and stuff. I think it's a lot easier using your tool than kind of diving through the file system to find that stuff.
Yeah, I wrote it for that, and I wrote it for printing out a summary after my script that runs XFS tests. So I can just look at that.
Right.
So I don't need to scroll through all the results and see what it did.
So a question, so when you run this kdev up, and are the results always public? Or is it that something like you say that you can put it somewhere where it's public, right? Where we don't want to accumulate.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in there to push the data out to a public repo, but there's nothing stopping us from doing that.
No, but Ben pointed, and well, he put something in the chat and said the results
so
are
FS
here.
tests,
So
yeah, that stuff is collected in a Git repo. But the other workflows don't have that yet.
Yeah, Olga, basically what it does is, so you clone kdevops, right? So you've got a Git repo, and when you run like a particular workflow, it'll just add files, within that directory tree. But unless you were to like git add those results and then push them, they're not going to be public anywhere. They're just in your local repo. And then I'm pretty sure that there's now like a git ignore for those results. So I think even if you wanted to push it shouldn't be possible to add them to the public repo anymore.
Yeah, it shouldn't be possible to add them to the source repo, but go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, this is going to kind of turn it off there, but all this information is great information. But is there something that we need to move to linux.org, linux-nfs.org, so we can point people to it to make it a little more public, so you don't have to guess where the repos are at? Just an idea, to make it more public, and so we all know where to go to get the repos.
So
Well,
kdevops is on GitHub.
I know. I'm looking at it right now, but I'm just saying,
Okay.
have a pointer on linux.org to that GitHub, that repo.
You want something in the wiki?
Yeah, that's what I'm basically saying. Yeah, the wiki. So then you don't have to grab, and consolidate all the information on the wiki. But the question now, Ben, maybe you can answer this: do we have control of that wiki anymore?
Oh yeah, so here's a little update. We're just updating the software for Wiki and the Bugzilla, but we haven't cut over yet. So
Okay,
it's
fair enough.
still on the older versions and on the older infrastructure that it was running on, but still it all works the same as it always has. Yeah.
And Anna's tool. It would be nice to have put in one place. Have a pointer to Anna's tool and get everything in one place. So we just say, okay, it's all here. And update it. There's a lot of, I'm looking at Linux nfs.org, and there's a lot of information there that's probably outdated by now. So, but that I'm just trying to, because just trying to see, this is really great information. I didn't know about Anna's tools, and that's now I do, and it's just it just makes sense to me. Everyone, go off one place, and to find everything we are just talking about.
Hey, I didn't know about Anna's tool, and I work with her.
Well, I mean, the reason I know it was because somebody was, I think maybe Jeff started the discussion on the list, saying, here, these are the XFS test failures that I'm seeing. What do other people see? And that's where Anna mentioned her tool, and she put a link to her repo, and that was it.
Yeah, that was months and months ago.
Yeah, I must have missed that
October,
message.
November-ish.
Well,
Yes,
I mean, I bookmarked it, and I was like, this looks like it'll be interesting to look at later. And then when I had some time, I looked at it. So
We should probably share results more often. Just, I think sometimes on the list we get very official, and maybe it's worth just like publishing our results to share with each other once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
And then, I mean, upstream, I'm not going to be a part of the discussion at LSF this year, but it does seem like this problem is eventually going to get solved because so many people have a similar problem, and we all run very similar test suites, maybe not all in kdevops, but it seems to make sense to me that there would be a service somewhere that would just be a giant database of text strings that would hash out all the results and find the differences.
Well, except for the fact that, for instance, if we are running this against NetApp, we're not going to publish the results, right? What's failing, what's not, right? So,
right. I mean, for all of file system developers together, not just NFS folks.
Yeah, it's going to need some mechanism for protecting proprietary test results.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
now,
I don't care. I would, but I think some legal folks might have
Yeah, they might have a problem with
problems
that.
with that. So,
Probably means don't make it automatic. It has to be something you manually do. Or
Right.
at least
Okay,
what if a distro happened to be running against a NetApp filer, and would that be
I think you might.
publishers?
Yeah, I think you might. Yeah, because you're a partner, so I
Okay.
think there might be some kind of partnership thing.
Okay, that's good to
where,
know.
There's probably an NDA.
Yeah.
We'd have to, if we did do that, we'd definitely have to go through our legal the legal of the was just make sure. But really, was if they say no, I mean, is they have, I don't know. I'm always one. It's easier to get forgiveness than permission. I've always been quite in that way. So I don't know. Who's really looking at it? What harm will it really do if we share? I don't know.
Okay, Scott, Jeff, are there any of the topics we should cover here, or do you think the discussion is at a closing point?
Yeah, that's about all I got. I think it's more just an evangelization session mostly.
Yeah, I mean, I got a ton. I could talk for the next hour on it, picking yours and Jeff's brains about things that I'm seeing, but probably not interesting to the other folks on the call. So I'll save it for another forum.
Well, we should mention there is a Discord service on this. It's accessible via the same technology that we use for the BAT, where this stuff can be discussed quite openly and in great detail.
Yeah, is that a good place? Because Chuck, you pinged me on Facebook, which was good, but is Discord a better place for all of us to reach out to each other real time?
I guess.
Thank you.
I don't remember reaching out to you on Facebook. That's why I was making the weird face.
Yeah, and believe me, I was kind of shocked myself. I thought that was a good idea, though.
Oh, that could have been a hacker.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Just to put some closure on this, some of the stuff I'm working on right now for kdevops is I'm adding an iSCSI target so that we can test PNFS block layout at least. I would like to have some testing for file or flex file, but our NFSD implementation doesn't support either of those. Does flex file, very basic sort of stuff, but I'm not sure that that's suitable for a full-on CI testing suite. So that's kind of the next step for me. I don't know, Jeff. What's the next project that you're working on for kdevops? Nothing right now, or?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot in the, right now. I'm kind of, I'm between jobs at the moment, so I'm kind of like.
You are?
Yeah, yeah, yes, but so I'm kind of like not doing much.
Scott?
Once I get into the new gig, and then I'll have an idea of what changes I want to make, if any. So.
I think Meta might be interested in beefing up that testing for upstream software. So
yeah,
I'm happy to hear.
I talked to Joseph a while back, and he's kind of stopped using kdevops mostly because they are doing a lot of. He's using I don't know. He said he hit some problems with it trying to deploy and some of the internal stuff at Meta he was using. I don't know. I haven't looked at what it is, but he was using some other thing that he homegrown. But I'm not sure if he's used it since we've kind of shuttled Vagrant off to the side. So I may be in a better shape now for what he wants to do. I don't know. So I'll have to see what the layout is once I get there. I figure. I don't know.
Okay. Scott, what's your next step?
I'm sort of ramping down as well, just because I've been spending too much time on it to the detriment of other things. One thing I definitely would like to see is just a better way of getting at the results, particularly with all the other non-FS test workflows. I'm running all this stuff through BuildBot, so a lot of it is automated. And I just want something to tell me, yeah, you've got failures here that you need to look at. Something like that would be useful for all those. And then with the XFS test workflow even, because like right now, so when I run, so the BuildBot basically, it's under the hood, it's just running a bunch of make commands, right? So just like, the way you would with kdevops. And when you say make FS test results, right, it just literally copies your results in your directory structure. It doesn't actually interpret the results that in a way that would affect the return code of that command. So that command succeeds even though I might have test failures. So I need another step that's actually going to look at those and highlight like, yes, you have some failures. That's kind of that's kind of like the last piece that I would be looking for. I don't really have any plans to add any new workflows myself. Although I know Paolo Alcantara, who recently joined Red Hat a couple months ago to take over CIFS, he has some DFS tests that he runs manually. And I'd kind of like to help him get that, into kdevops. But it would need a lot of like restructuring and stuff. Like the tests need to be in Git and, kind of generalized away from his environment in a way that could be repeatedly deployed. Aside from that, I don't really have any NFS specific stuff I'm looking at implementing.
Okay. When you say DFS, you're talking about the sort of FedFS like thing that goes over CIFS. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, again, just thinking out of the box, is this something that distros, we should push on distros to have them start testing NFS in their world? Would that help the cause?
Well, I think I would like to interact with the distro QA teams because I would want to hear from them what tests are they running. I definitely think we should get some anonymized result information from them to understand where where our testing gaps are upstream.
Yeah, so that's something that maybe Scott and I can work on.
Right. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure sharing the technology is necessarily appropriate, but understanding the results and understanding what's driving their selection of which tests they're running, I think would be interesting for us. Because we have lots of testing gaps upstream.
Yeah, and in Red Hat, we have our core things that we've been doing all these years, but this is something new, and I doubt they know about it. Our QE people don't know about it. Our other distros know about it.
Well, they probably have something that they run that they have a framework that they run all.
They do. Oh yeah, no question about it.
I'm interested in exactly what tests they're running.
All right. We can come up with that.
I mean, I think like the Red Hat QE teams, they tend to write a lot of targeted tests. So when somebody files a bug, if there's a reproducer in that, they will turn that into a test case. But those are all run within Beaker, right? Which is what, Red Hat has used forever. Don't know how feasible it would be to turn those into test cases that would be run under something like kdevops or not.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I was just throwing it out there. I'm just trying to think out of the box, So I'm good. Not really, but I'm tired.
Okay, so we'll wrap up. Just want to say tomorrow afternoon we're going to have a BoF about NFS test. Come with your questions. We're just going to have a nice and come with your adult beverages.
Oh, it's a happy hour. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's what I need.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Yep. It was very interesting.